quantify how many people are in these receiving tax abatements?
Definitely will.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. No other questions, Marcy? Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so next I'm going to ask for the viewers that you give your name and your title also, but we are going to go to emergency management. Mark?
Mark McEwen, Emergency Management Director, Town of Darien. Good morning. I don't have anything to add to my report other than I have a college intern who's a junior studying emergency management in the office for about the next 7 weeks. He's worked on some plans for us. He's updated the severe weather playbook, which is some of the department heads are working on, but that's all I have for my report.
Okay. Marcy?
I just want to say this report was beautiful. It was really...
Short and sweet.
Yeah, it was nice. It was well done. Thank you.
Mark, could you go over the Dewberry meeting on the 27th?
Do what?
The Dewberry for the FEMA applications?
Oh, sure. The town has retained a consultant to work on repetitive flood loss residents that have suffered this summer for 2 storms, and in preparation for people who want to apply for some type of grant to either elevate their home or to acquire their property. Currently, we have 10 residents that have some interest. I don't believe we'll have 10 that we'll be applying for, but that's yet to be seen. On the 27th, I believe it's 6 to 8, we have appointments with some of those interested homeowners to work through the details.
There are current applications that are in now, correct?
There's one application that's already been submitted
Yep.
on behalf of a homeowner. The other ones are waiting to work with the consultant.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Mark. Okay. Jen from Finance?
Good morning. Jennifer Charneski, Finance Director. I have nothing to add to my report, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Marcy?
No, I think we'll have to come out in the budget cycle.
We are very involved in the budget cycle right now, but I just want to clarify the fund balance. I know that's a constant discussion. Is that reviewed every year?
Yes, as part of the
ratio?
Board of Finance budget reviews, they looked specifically at fund balance.
Okay, so that's an annual, not a every 3 year.
Nope, annual.
Okay. All right, that's all.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Okay, next we have Bobby Bush, Fire Marshal. Bob Bush, sorry.
Morning, Bob Bush, Fire Marshal. My report stands as submitted. I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
I have a question.
Yes.
So the Eagle Scout project,
Yes.
painting the fire hydrants, that was really a great thing to do. Did that cover all of the fire hydrants, and can you speak to it a little bit for people?
No, she did a specified section of town, and as other Eagle Scout projects have done, they picked an area of town to do, because trying to do over 600 fire hydrants is a huge undertaking.
Right.
So
Can you explain to the public what the project was?
So the project is for the fire service. The fire hydrants that we have out there, we have them mapped in our GPS systems, but they are also marked by the telephone poles that are out on the street. So on either side of a fire hydrant, there's a yellow stripe that's painted so that we have line of sight, because sometimes we may not have internet access for our GPS, or the hydrant could be buried in the snow. So for us to be able to go out looking, either in an emergency situation or trying to shovel them out after it snowed, it's a great help to us.
Okay. And another question is, I see that you go to the kindergarten classes, and you did Henley. Do you rotate every year?
We do, most of our programs are at the preschool level. If requested by the elementary schools, we will happily go out and do a project. The one at Hindley was a reach out through one of the fire departments. I believe one of the dad's son or daughter is a kindergartner at Hindley. Okay. So that's how we got involved in that.
All right. Do you, would you like to do it at other schools?
We would love to. It just becomes a time issue.
Okay, okay. And my last question, speaking of time, so the Blight Officer, so I see we have 8 cases on the books right now, and the Blight Officer is spending 75% of his time on blight, and is that?
Yes, so he only works 19 hours a week.
Right.
So, you know, it's a little bit more than a day and a half that is spent on follow-up on cases, following up on what the Blight Review Board has asked him to do, notices that have to be sent, documentation of everything.
So that is a pretty constant as far as how much time he spends in that area?
It varies, and we're hoping that, you know, we've finally hit the peak of what we see as complaints about blight in town, and we're going to hopefully, as we start to see a resolution, we'll see a drop off in his time, and it'll probably end up being about 50-50.
Okay. Okay.
Just one quick question.
Yep.
Do you have any concerns about the adequacy of the fire department with all these new developments going in?
So I don't, as everyone's aware, it's a fully volunteer fire service. We are really fortunate in this town for what we get in terms of turnout. We have highly trained people. And then as long as we continue to get the volunteers that want to show up, turn out, and have adequate staffing when we have emergency calls, I think we're in good shape. But
How about equipment needs?
equipment, we're in good shape. We do have a replacement schedule for fire apparatus, and other equipment is replaced on a regular basis as well. But the major dollar expenditure is on apparatus itself. But that is all out of my purview. That is all through the 3 fire departments.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Bobby. Okay, next is Health Department, David Knopf.
Good morning, David Knopf, Director of Health, and sometimes COVID reference person. Or at least for the past 2 years, that's been the case. I really don't have anything more to add to my report than what I submitted, other than to say we've had a very big interest from the public on getting radon test kits this year. And so we've ordered some more. Don't know how many more we'll get in, but hopefully we'll get some in this week. We went through our supply that we were providing to the public.
And those test kits are free, right?
They're free. Free test kits, yes.
Right. Okay.
And the idea is to, 1 per person, 1 per resident, put in the lower level of your home. This is the best time to do it, best time of year to do it, because houses are all closed up and the heating system is on. So you tend to have negative pressure in the house to pull the radon in. Highest levels will be found at this time of year. Yes.
I got John sent me a list of questions.
A list?
So, coming. Are there any aspects of COVID efforts not otherwise mandated by the state worth a reevaluation? So it's referencing to contact tracing, which I don't believe that we're actively doing that much now.
We are doing contact tracing, or actually interviews of people who are under 5 or under, and over 65, because they're the highest risk.
Okay.
And those are the ones that tend not to be, well, the younger ones obviously aren't vaccinated yet, and the older ones are highest at risk. So we are trying to do the best we can with that age group, but since around the holidays, Christmas holidays, there's no way we could keep up with the day-to-day contact tracing.
Okay. When was the last time your fee schedule was updated? Are any of the fees worth reconsidering? Or
Well, you know, we review, or I consider fees every year at budget time, and we're still, I've been here since 2008, and we haven't raised our fees substantially in that period of time. We've revised them a bit, but we're still among the highest cost fees communities in the state. So, no, I'm not inclined to raise fees at this point.
And are COVID efforts overly impacting your ability to deliver services regarding other aspects of the mission?
Well, COVID has brought a whole new dimension of the responsibilities of the health department that we didn't used to have. There's no question about it. And, you know, the time spent or the time available for other things is definitely impacted. And that's reflected in our request for a budget this year. You know, and I don't think that COVID, as it is, hopefully will diminish in terms of the amount of time that we have to focus on it, but I don't know that it'll ever really go away. So the answer to the question is it has absolutely impacted our ability, but we're still managing to keep current with our food inspections and stay timely with the other components of our responsibilities. You know, including last year we did not offer radon test kits. This year we did because we're able to do that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your work this year.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, David. Your department has been in overdrive for the last 2 years, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really. Okay. And next up is Lori Dunn, Human Resources.
Good morning. My name is Lori Dunn, Director of Human Resources. I do not have anything to add to my report, but I'm happy to take questions.
Marcy, you want to give John's?
No questions from John, no questions from me today.
Okay. Thank you, Lori.
Okay, thanks.
And next up is Human Services, Allie Ramstack.
Morning. I'm Allie Ramstack, Director of Human Services. I don't have anything further to add to my report. If you have any questions.
Allie, I have a couple. The Water Assistance Program, that's a brand-new program, right?
Yes.
And is it run the same as the Heating Assistance Program? And would the same people apply for both?
Yes, so when they apply for the energy assistance, they automatically apply for the water. They ask specific questions if you have an outstanding water bill. We haven't had many people, luckily water bills are usually the cheapest bill you have, but we haven't had many people who are partaking in that.
Okay. And then evictions, how are we looking there?
We don't really have any way to predict how many there will be. As you know, in my report, we had one last quarter that was very time-consuming. They're all obviously very sad, but right now we don't have any that are pending. Okay. But sometimes we can get a notice a couple days beforehand from the marshal. Most of them give us more leeway because it does take time, and we want to give the resident more time to prepare. But sometimes we can get one and they say it's 2 days later, so there's really no way of knowing.
Okay, and I feel like I saw a big drop-off in people that were receiving funding. So the Operation Fuel, there were 29 houses last year, and it looks like our allocation is significantly less this year. Is that?
Well, it just started in December.
Okay.
So there's they have a spring or a winter spring, and then they have a summer fall program.
Okay.
So we just at the beginning.
Okay, so
it'll
we're in
probably
the
be
second
similar.
half of it. Okay. And then we had, so that's why the applications are down also?
Yeah.
Because it's,
So
okay.
it's just like we're only in the second month.
Okay. And 9 new cases for this quarter, is that pretty typical?
No, it's actually a little bit lower. And there's, again, kind of like evictions, there's no way to really predict who's going to need help. But it was probably lower for some reason. I'm not quite sure.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ally. Okay, next up is Information Technology, Jeff Adams. This looks like George.
Morning.
Good morning.
I have nothing further to add.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
John has a couple questions. I'd like to ask for a sense of the department's protective measures against... No, wrong department?
Wrong question. Sorry.
Did you just say it was IT?
Yeah, but we're not going to ask that question.
Did you anticipate any major capital expenditures in the next 2 to 3 years?
Not that I know of. What I'll do is I'll mention that to Jeff, confirm. I can get back to you.
Okay. Who are the key third-party support providers? Has the list changed recently, and are you contemplating a near term?
It's always changing.
It is.
We're always looking to see whether we can get a better rate at any places. Our key providers right now, I mean, we have them for the last couple of years now, so it's worked out well for us. We change sometimes because of the contracts, like for instance, the Xerox machines. The printers within our school systems and around, we have a gentleman now that we've just put on board who's going to take care of just basically toner things. More so with the town, he's been doing it now, but he's also going to do it with the Board of Education. Okay.
Okay. George, I have a question. Ticket processing, those are kind of work orders, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, that's it. Okay. Looks like we have no more questions, so thank you.
You got it. Thank you.
I'll explain that one later.
Yeah, I see.
Okay. And next we have land use. We have Jeremy Ginsburg.
Jeremy Ginsburg, Director of Land Use. Happy to answer any questions you may have about building or planning and zoning.
Okay. I have, on flood applications, we do not charge a fee for those applications, right?
Right. After a big storm such as the one we had in September, the policy has been to waive the application fees for people who wish to rebuild. So both planning and zoning and building waived some fees for people to get building permits, and I think the amounts were noted in the report.
Right, right. So Jeremy, in the report it said that 25 flood repair permits, most of these permits were in Kensett. Are we anticipating more permits coming through?
No, I think at this point, being that we're in January, I'd be surprised. Maybe we'll see one more, but the people that wanted to get or needed to get building permits to rebuild, reconstruct, have done so.
Okay. And Kensett hired they did their own study over there, right?
My understanding is that they are in the process of doing their own study and analysis on drainage issues which have occurred over there or may be occurring, but you could see from the report that there were a number of folks at Kensett that got flood damage.
Right.
We call it flood damage, water damage.
Okay. And the new online permitting, how is that going?
Very good. We're getting a good response from the general public. It's been well received. The ability to take credit cards, the ability for folks to input and submit materials, evenings, weekends, holidays, really seems to be an advantage. And so there are a few people that struggle with it, but for the most part, big success where general response has been very positive.
Okay. No more questions from me. Thanks, Jeremy. Okay, next up, we have Park and Rec, Pam Gary. Nope. This does not look like Pam. Hi, Jim.
Jim Coughlin, Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation, so I'm pinch hitting for Pam today. I have nothing further to add to the report, so if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Sure, John has a question. What is the need for the licensed playground professional?
I'm sorry, what's that?
What is the need for the licensed playground professional?
So We have several playgrounds in town, in our parks. They should be inspected. So we've chosen to get a licensed professional to come out. Many cities and towns do that. They'll hire a professional to come in, inspect your playground, and give you a report of what changes you should make or what updates you should do, and any kind of repairs that you should make to make sure that they're safe.
Okay, I have a thought on Pear Tree. I see that it's in the budget for 24. And I think it would be really helpful for the Park Commission to come before the Board of Selectmen and with their thinking on this project.
Okay.
How they anticipate it, if there's more than one stage, or what their thought process is.
Okay.
This has been thought about for a while, and we would really like to see them.
Okay. We actually have a meeting tomorrow night, so I'll bring that up to them. Yep.
Terrific.
Sure.
Terrific. Have them come before the board. That would be great.
Okay.
Okay?
Just one more question. How often are the fees evaluated on Park and Rec?
So the Park and Recreation Commission looks at the fees on a yearly basis. It's actually on the agenda for tomorrow night's meeting. Typically, it's in January. They'll look at it every year. So your beach sticker fees and some of the other fees that we have are discussed at that meeting and voted on.
Do you have any idea when the last time they were changed?
They're changed yearly. I think the beach sticker fees were changed last year. So they're, every few years they usually we'll look to change them.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And Jim, you'll definitely know this. The dredging that was done at Tilly, the material that was taken out, where is that material right now?
I believe it's still at Tilly, so we'll be looking to spread it throughout the park or use it in different areas where it can be used. So it was tested and is good fill or soil that we could use. So we'll look for different projects that we could use it on.
Have you thought about asking Ed for Edgerton?
I don't know if Pam's had that discussion with Ed, but I'd have to discuss that with her. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Terrific.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is Chief Anderson for the Police Department.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Don Anderson from the Police Department. I trust you found the report to be comprehensive and accurate. As always, I expect questions from the board, but I think since this board has been impaneled, I've answered many questions from all members of the new Board of Selectmen. So with that, I will certainly entertain any questions you might have.
I have one question, Chief. I see that traffic infractions is up 50%. Is that unusual for this year? Is it
Well, across the state during COVID, traffic enforcement went down exponentially. There was an article in the Connecticut Post this week about state police traffic enforcement. It was kind of a hands-off. We were trying to stay distance from the public. So the increase now is swinging back toward a regular enforcement for motor vehicles. So you should see an upswing moving forward.
Okay. All right.
The other thing that I would add on the report is the Board of Selectmen did ask that in our calls for service on page 2 that we have a year-by-year comparison. So you'll see that the previous year, same quarter for the previous year is noted on changes for types of incidents.
I think in general, the reports, when they do a year over year, are very helpful. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
No more questions for me, Mars? No. Okay. Thanks, Don. Thanks, Chief. Okay. Next up is Public Works at Gentile.
Ed Gentile, Director of Public Works, and I don't know how to follow Don's introduction like that, but I'll give it my best shot. Report stands as submitted. Any questions? I'm here to answer.
I have a few. The replanting plan for Heights Road, where do we stand on that? For the trees that Eversource was taking down?
There's nothing been submitted yet.
Okay. Okay. And Roton Heights, the drainage project, have we reached out, have we contacted the DOT person? Has the DOT person responded is probably a better question, for a meeting?
We still haven't heard back from the director from DOT Rails, but I've been in contact with him about 3 weeks ago about setting something up after the holidays.
Okay. And can you give us an update on the Roton Heights and West Avenue?
The bids are due on Thursday. We've gotten some good responses from the questions I've come back. There's quite a few companies looking at it. Hopefully I'll get quite a few companies submitting bids. After that time, we'll evaluate the bids and submit them to the state. With their approval, we'll issue a contract to the contractor, and at that time, receive the funds from the state in full value.
Okay. And can you give us an update on the Bailey and the Saltbox watershed studies?
We're about 4 weeks into the study, so they're basically putting together the mapping and drainage area maps, if you will, to start doing the full-blown studies, running the analysis. So we have another 2.5, 3 months before we get a final report, but I should be getting an update this week from them. We also get them every 2 weeks.
So the site visits are completed?
One of them is, and I think they'll end up going back a couple times as they finish and move along during the study in watershed development.
Okay. All right. And new sidewalks, do you have anything on your radar right now?
I have Edgerton's been sitting on my radar.
Okay.
It requires us to do a public meeting.
Okay. All right. And can you give us an update on Ledge and Roton?
There is still an outstanding piece of the puzzle, which is the deed restriction that the state had placed on the turnover of Ledge Road and some of the property that the town owns along that stretch. I understand that we were supposed to get last week and didn't get, though, was the appraisals. And once I get those, we'll sit down with Attorney Fox and review them. But we did get a number from them, and I think that needs to be looked at as soon as we get the backup documentation from them.
Okay. Okay, great.
That's all my questions.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Register of Voters, Susan and John.
Morning, John Vesey, Registrar of Voters. And my counterpart.
Good morning, Susan Gray, Registrar of Voters.
Morning.
I have nothing to add to the report, Susan.
We really don't have anything to add unless you have some questions.
I have no further questions. Do you?
No questions.
No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Senior Center, Beth?
Good morning. Beth Paris, Darien Senior Programs at Mather Center. I have nothing to add to the report, but would be happy to answer any questions.
Beth, I see that your goal is, or you're thinking that possibly having lunch programs started inside in March? Is that
Hoping. We're
okay.
watching, we're still watching the spike and seeing where we are at that point. We definitely would have entertainment coming back in. One of the things we did before the spike hit was we were having entertainments in and we were having lunch in center, safe distance apart, but still bagged lunch. Then people had to put their masks back on, and when the entertainment started, we stopped that now until March just to see what's happening in terms of the spike. And we've had several instructors not feel comfortable about coming in right now, but all of our rest of that's actually only 3, all of our rest of our programs are running. We're still doing the protocol of everybody has to be masked, we're 6 foot distanced, and there's a limit to how many people can be in the room and how long the program is. So people are feeling comfortable with that.
Okay. Your lunch program, how do you advertise that to the town? And has that number been pretty consistent?
The drive-through lunch is extremely popular. We have over 223 people now taking advantage of that. We cap it at 50 a day. We can't, because basically we can't do more than that. When we moved back inside, average was about 35 people a day, and if it was tied to a thematic program, it could be as much as 120, 80 to 120, but that was for basically special events. We don't seem to feel a need to put that out there other than it's in our newsletter, it's in our constant contact, and right now it's only for Darien residents. It has been since COVID.
So you really can't handle that many more people?
Probably not on a regular basis without more staff. And we are down staff right now. Our second building attendant, that position hasn't been filled. And our activity assistant had left us for a medical reason, and a clerk. So it's basically a skeleton staff doing that. Matter of fact, our chef is out for 2 weeks, and at 11 o'clock, the whole rest of us are going to be getting the meal ready through a caterer. So we don't stop, and we're doing 40 a day for that with Jennifer's Kitchen.
Wow. The chef, that was a planned
Yes, that was planned.
hiatus, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, other things are happening beside COVID too, so, yeah.
Well, you provide a very valuable service for the town. Thank you, really.
Very
Marcy,
welcome.
do you have any questions?
Is there a sign up for seniors before they show up in the lunch line?
Absolutely. We actually do the sign up for the lunches a week in advance. And the reason we're doing that is there's no waste at all. You can sign up between Monday and Wednesday between 9 and 11:30. Of course, but there's a little wiggle room for that. And you're signing up for, right now, you're signing up for the week of the 24th. So this has helped us really streamline things, and people are really used to that at this point, so it's a good thing.
And it fills up pretty fast.
It fills up pretty fast, yeah.
Beth, do you have a lot of volunteers that help with programs?
We had a lot of volunteers pre-COVID. We're slowly bringing them back in again, basically on the desk, greeting people, making sure waivers are signed, and actually recording our attendance at this point. So, but there's 5 of them that were willing to come back. And then several of our instructors are volunteers too, like our writing class, one of our exercise classes, that's a sitting class, is a volunteer as well. So there are a few of those instructors that are back too. I think that after this is over, people will feel, better about coming back in again. And also we'll start recruiting again, because we usually recruit every year.
Okay. And your newsletter is a weekly or a monthly?
The newsletter is monthly, but the constant contact is weekly.
Okay.
So basically, that if you have an email address, and if you don't and you ask us for it, we'll give it to you. But we basically, for folks who don't have technology, we take the newsletter and we highlight it for them. And we'll go through it with them to make sure that they get the classes, that they don't miss anything. So.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, Bruce?
Just real quick, in terms of enrollment for a lot of the programs that you do have, is it still pretty low? Are you finding that you're hitting
the low number is related to the fact that we can't put the same amount of people. For instance, the lectures, that cafe extension, usually we fit about 40, 45 people. We're only doing 16. The exercise classes too, usually about 30 people, and we've got that level to 18 because we're doing the distancing.
Are you getting that amount? Are you
all
getting 18?
filled. All of those classes are filled, yes, and with waiting lists and somewhat frustrated people, but we're doing it. And we've also cultivated a wonderful share that if you can't come, you call. So there's people that call in the morning to see if there were any cancellations too. So, yeah. We've got wonderful people, wonderful residents utilizing our program, very, considerate.
Perfect.
Beth, in general, what's your outreach to people as far as calling them to see if everything is okay?
Allie keeps the list in it for emergency situations and also before storms and things like that. We have a list of folks that we know don't have family and are isolated because they don't have technology. And we actually have broken that up between Stacy and I, that we call them on an every other week basis. So, we're doing that. And when we have our volunteers back in, there's a couple of hand-picked volunteers that we have them come in on our phone number and utilize our phone number for that too. so that we keep connected with those people. I think there's about 40 people on that list at this point, and they tend to be the older people. They're pretty much 80. I think the oldest is 97 on that list.
Wow. Thank you for everything you do for Darien.
Great service.
Our pleasure.
Really.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Beth. Next, we have Cathy Larkin's tax collector.
So Cathy Larkin's tax collector, as you can see from my report, collections are pretty much on target versus the prior year. I just wanted to give you a clarification on the advance payments. We took in $800,000 more in November than the prior 2 years, and that's what, between what we took in November and December, got us to pretty much the advance payments that we received the prior year, just because I know that was a little confusing in how I wrote that. In terms of just for the residents, I did put the tax payment file on the website. It can be, that's the file which contains all payments that were made in property taxes during calendar year 2021. People use that file for when they're filing their income taxes. So that file can be retrieved from the home page. Additional links, it's the second one, which is web payment history. There's also instructions on the news feed as to how to access the information. Other than that, I have nothing to add.
I have a couple questions on significant payments during the quarter. Were those homes that were foreclosed, or?
Both of them were sold.
Okay. Okay. Do you see a big uptick in people paying online?
Yes, huge.
Yeah. Right.
And I think, and I did put a comment in the report, there's been a lot of issues with the mail. So I think people are using the online system as an alternative, especially because they don't want to come in person.
Right. Okay. That's all I have, Morris. Okay.
I did leave the refund folder, but I know three selectmen need to sign off on it, so I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Cathy. Next up is Krista Mcnamara for Town Clerk.
Good morning. Krista Mcnamara, Town Clerk. The only other item I would add to my report for the fourth quarter of 2021 was in November of 21, the state finalized its redistricting lines for the House seat and the Senate seats for Darien. Effective in November of 22, Darien will be represented by 3 senators and 2 House representatives. So with that information, now we are looking at how that may impact the local voting districts of Darien. So that's just something that happened in the fourth quarter that will be rolling into this year. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
John has a question on, were you able to track the reasons for absentee ballots when they were checking off COVID or when these last few ones came in?
No, we did not track the reasons as to why people were choosing. There are multiple reasons why a Connecticut resident can vote absentee: military service, out of town, and now COVID. So anecdotally, I believe it was COVID. Most people checked as a reason for the absentee ballot, but I do not have statistics on that.
I just have a thought, which is that the birth rate was up 27% over.
I thought of that as I was listening to your OPC meeting about the elementary schools and the schools in town. Yes, births are up, so that will be reflected, I'm sure, in the Malone and McBrome study if the Board of Education does budget for that for next year.
Okay. Krista, preservation surcharges. Can you explain that?
I would be better just sending you an email on all that.
Okay.
It's
perfect.
State legislation.
Okay. Those are all my questions, Marcy. Okay. Thanks, Krista.
Thank you.
Okay. And next we have Town Treasurer Joan Hendrickson.
Good morning. Joan Hendrickson, Treasurer. Last week, the only update is last week I sent you new numbers in an email to Monica, and if you would make your board aware of it. It's got the new portfolio for December and any changes that we might have. But any questions?
I have none at this time.
None. Done?
That's it.
Thanks, Joan.
Thanks, Joan. Okay, next up is TV 79, Jim Cameron.
Good morning, Jim Cameron, Program Director of TV 79. Fourth quarter was a busy one for us. You probably remember there was an election. Candidates Night, the annual League of Women Voters debate that was held in here in front of a very small audience. Nobody was allowed in the audience except for the candidates and staff from the League of Women Voters. So the only way people could watch that was going to be online, either live or on Vimeo. 782 views on Vimeo. So people wanted to get engaged in the election process, and it was good for our audience. Overall viewership on TV 79, it's hard to measure, although I gave you some Vimeo charts. But one of the metrics I use is our program guide. We do a weekly program guide that lists all the upcoming meetings with links to agendas and Vimeos, etc. That used to have about a 33% open rate. Last week it was 55%, which is an indication to me that people are following town government more closely. Happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
So Jim, on that metric means that they opened the email. It doesn't mean they watched anything, correct?
That's correct. I can also tell if they have clicked through and looked at an agenda or looked at a Vimeo, but at least they're not throwing it into spam. They're opening it, they're looking at it just to see what's coming up next week, what the meetings were this past week.
So has that been promoted recently?
I'm sorry, promoted?
Has that been promoted recently, that link or that email?
Well, we promote it on our new website, so it's easier to sign up for it. But I'm working on some publicity. You're going to see a magazine article in a local publication, the February issue, all about TV 79. We've also relaunched our Community Matters series, where we're interviewing local nonprofits and NGOs, and they are helping publicize it by promoting those interviews, putting them on their websites, sending out email links to their members as well too. So I would expect that the subscription, which is now about 1,100 opt-in emails each week, will probably grow.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see.
Sure, I can certainly agree with you that I think that people are going to be more dependent on this videography for town government. And do you foresee any need in coverage of facilities or equipment as a result of this increase in viewership?
No, we are well budgeted with the grants that we receive every year from Area 9 Cable Council. We have outfitted room 206 with the new monitors. We're still working on trying to achieve the elusive goal of doing a hybrid meeting, but we're well capitalized. I don't expect any capital expenses for expanded coverage.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Jim, I know that you will have some viewers for this meeting.
I've been hearing from them on my phone already. I think they're already watching because we're streaming this live too.
Okay, so thank you for everything you do for the town.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, that will conclude our department heads meeting, and we will, I'm sorry, post 53, come on up. I don't know how I lost you in that shuffle.
That's all right. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I have nothing new to add to my report, so I'll be glad to take any questions.
Marcy, do you have any?
John has a couple questions. Do you have any plans to require boosters for your members?
We're going to follow the CDC guidance on it. So currently, the booster comes into effect when we have either an exposure to a case, and if they're fully vaccinated and boosted, the time requirement to come back to duty is a little shorter. But if the CDC or the government requires a booster, I'll gladly do the same.
Are your fundraising up to expectations?
Yes, and we're currently in the middle of our fundraising appeal, and very, very gracious donations, and very thankful to the town for their support.
And are there any pending changes or tightenings in state certification requirements for your high school members?
No. Right now, the state has put an extension on all renewals for certifications and licenses, so we have not had a need to apply for any extensions. We remain current with all our training and education, so our members are renewing as expected every 2 years.
And did you see as many applicants this year as you have in the past?
Yes, and thank goodness, with the pandemic, we were a little nervous, but we actually have seen more applications over the last 2 years than we've seen previously, so.
Good.
Absolutely.
Good. And congratulations on your EMS service.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
That's quite an honor.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yes, very big honor.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Do you see transports going up now, or?
We have, especially over the last 6 months. We had a significant increase in call volume after midnight and before 7:15 in the morning. And then we've also seen an increase during the day. So our peak times still remain anywhere from 9 a.m. They rise throughout the day and then sort of taper off in the evening hours. And we've seen a little bit of drop, with the winter coming in, but much higher call volume this year than in the previous years.
Falls are a really, really big part of your calls, right?
Yes, absolutely. So anything we can do to help mitigate that is a plus.
How can we help with that?
I think there's some good fall prevention programs that we can tap into. One of the things that we try to do is if we see a living situation where there's some concerns about hazards in the home, lack of care, we'll work with Ally to help address that. We also have a social service referral program to the hospital, so we'll advise case management that, we saw some slip rugs in dangerous places or some inadequate living conditions, and they'll get involved as well. So, but again, I think just really, educating the community that, especially for the elderly, of what the risks are to have, certain things in their home, and especially around stairs and slick surfaces and things like that.
Okay. Any other questions, Marcy? Okay. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
All right. Did I miss anyone else? Nope. Okay. That will conclude our department heads meeting. Again, thank you all for coming, and it's a pleasure to work with all of you.